I'm thinking about our audience, some of whom are already young public servants, like with the Public Service Emerging Leaders Fellowship Program. One of the things that we are hoping to change when we think about the cultures you've mentioned, for example, what it was like for you to have a passionate desire to have impact, to serve government, but then getting into that space and facing a lot of challenges. What does it take? What are some of the skills that young people need to build up? You've mentioned, for example, political astuteness. So imagine for that person who's they actually really want to make a difference. What does it take to build up the skills like political astuteness and any other that is necessary to actually serve well, serve meaningfully, and then serve successfully, in a way helping improve efficiencies in public service?
That's an excellent question, Jerry. And I was part of the team that developed the curriculum for the yes. for the public sector emerging leaders. So we debated quite a bit on what is the right curriculum for our young people in public service. And so the curriculum they go through, at least I can say I've contributed. I've contributed to it in a way. But to answer your question, I think they are, for me, when I look at my career, they've been what I call significant others, significant people who've mentored and coached me. You understand?
Yes.
There are significant people who've mentored and coached me. I think I alluded to Kuria Mushiru. I also alluded to Isabel Ngugi. There are many others who have contributed to my growth. Some in the public sector, some in the corporate sector. But mentorship is very important, because with a mentor, you are able to look at how they've been successful there, and the mentors are able to share with you the challenges they face and how they tackle them within their different contexts.
Yeah.
And then they provide you a framework, because in life it's all about frameworks. That when you get into a situation, you have a framework that you can adopt. You understand? So I'll give you a very good example. At the level I am in, I'm dealing with different, very senior people within the Africa Development Bank who all may not necessarily have the same agenda or want the same thing. But what they all want is to make sure that Africa develops. How do you deal with that? And sometimes when you may not be in agreement with anything they're saying, how do you approach it for you to make sure that you're able to influence them? And this is also in the public sector. So for me, I've developed a very basic framework. I always ask, is this a fight? Yes, no. Is it a fight I can win? Yes, no. What's the implication of me winning? If I win A, B, C will be impacted. If I don't win, what will be the implication? If A, B, C are impacted by me winning this fight, what is the outcome or the consequence? You understand?
Yes.
And so before I get into any argument or into any pushback, I must have a significant amount of yes on my framework. And that's what a mentor does for you. You understand?
Yes.
So that's the first thing I would say. To be successful within the public sector, look for mentors. Look for mentors who've walked the journey. And the public sector has brilliant, brilliant people. You know, I want to just digress and say, I had a misconception before I joined the public sector, that the public sector doesn't have bright people. All the bright people are in corporate, or they're in this. I realized actually the brains are in public sector. With all due respect, they are fantastic people in corporate, but the public sector has amazing brains. People who've developed policies, people who've developed framework, and Africa and Kenya in particular has fantastic policies that a lot of developed countries have borrowed, adopted, and they are further than us in Kenya, using the policies that Kenyans have put together. So, get a mentor, but also be patient. Working in the public service is a marathon. It's not a sprint. You understand? It's a marathon. Why do I say that? The public service has policies that sometimes can limit even career growth, in the sense that you must sit in a grade for a number of years. You understand? And even if you're a top performer, Whereas in corporate, if you're delivering results and bringing in money, you can be promoted and can be accelerated. The public sector is not black and white. And a lot of public sector organizations, it's not about shareholder value. It's about public good, you know. And so you can be a top performer in government, but you still have to, you know, go through grade A, grade B, grade C. And the salary increment is also not significant. There are no bonuses within the public sector. And so the purpose, you as an individual must ask yourself, why am I going to work in the public sector? Who am I? And how do I want to contribute? Because until you know who you are, you will go to the public sector, you will be frustrated. One, you will want to steal, you will want to take shortcuts, you'll want to make deals, and then that you can destroy your career. I have a very, very good friend. She's done the journey. She's now at assistant director level at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. She's called Sally. Now, Sally has worked in the public service from when we graduated in 2000.
Wow.
She's an amazing public servant who can mentor a lot of people.
Right.
But also build networks. Okay. Now, how many people will know about Salome Kagosha, Deputy Commissioner for Kenya in Uganda? You know, but if you know Loice, and I know what you need, I can say Sally can mentor you.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
And so, for me, I think the public sector, the context and the complexities that come with it, you must understand who are you as a person.
Right.
You must be someone with resilience and patience.
Right.
You must be someone whose motives are for the public good. You want to see good for your country. Right. You want to see good for the young people. You want to see Kenya develop, not you want to develop yourself.
Right.
But you also need mentors and coaches to share their experiences, to tell you, this is where I fell, this is where I failed, and these are the lessons. But you also need to keep learning, keep learning.
Yes.
Because one of the interesting things that came out of my data, my analysis, on the first hypothesis of leadership, because that was my first variable, on leadership within the public sector, what was coming out is that to be a leader, to be an effective leader within the public sector right now, you really need to be innovative. Which is not what we thought.
Right.
We thought public sector leaders need to be bureaucratic, follow rules and procedures. Public sector leaders need to be able to define aspects of public-private partnerships. That came out from my study. How many people within government can formulate models for public-private sector partnerships? But that's a skill that they require right now.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
Another thing that came out of my study, which I think is very interesting, is that to be effective in the public sector, you need to be able to create strategic partnerships and manage different stakeholders. Because you're dealing with the board, you're dealing with the MPs, you're dealing with the Senate, you're dealing with the executive, you're dealing with your employees, you're dealing with your suppliers, you are dealing with the people on court. Are they called Kenyans on Twitter? They're watching.
Right.
So how do you balance all these critical stakeholders?
Right.
How do you build that?
Right.
And then finally, I think one of the other things I would share that to be effective in the public sector, both as a leader and as a youth, is your communication skills.
Okay.
You need to be able to articulate what you want. When you're driving an agenda, you need to be able to articulate it, and you need to be able to show the outcome and the impact. You understand?
Yes.
So that you get support, you get funding, you get to be in the manifesto, you know, of the government. You know, we need to be able to demonstrate results and outcomes. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Thank you for that. I'm thinking now about what it means for you over 20 years later, having now a private sector mind and understanding, but also a wealth of experience in the public sector. At ELF, we believe that for there to actually be sustainable growth in Kenya, we actually have to have meaningful youth engagement. And I know you believe in our vision. That's why we work together on it. What does it take to have meaningful youth engagement in these policy spaces for us to actually prepare the next generation to take up those very critical roles to drive the public sector reform that this country needs? How are we able to ensure that there's actually some form of succession management that is efficient enough? We have prepared young people, they're well equipped, not just with the technical skills, but now also with the soft skills that we are mentioning, communication and mentorship and coaching and going continuous learning, what would it take, and where are we now?
Wow, you asked such good questions, Jerry. And I don't know how to respond to that question because it's very broad. So I'll try to break it into little parts so that I can quickly answer it. Where are we now? I think yesterday was a demonstration of the progress that Kenya has made.
Right.
And for me, I always say, a lot of people who have not traveled, I've been lucky to travel to many, 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 many countries.
Right.
But I've also been lucky to study public sector in many different countries, you know, the public sector reforms. I'm even just coming in from Canada, where I did a bit of work on my paper, one of my public sector papers. Kenya has made some progress. When you compare Kenya to other African countries, Kenya is ahead on a lot of things. And if you look at the democratic space in Kenya, we have grown so much from our time when we were in university, when we were agitating for multipartyism, because I was in the group that was, we would go to class at 4, we go to the streets, we want multi-party, 96, 97, that was before. So when I look at where Kenya has come from in those days when we were agitating for multipartyism to where we are at now, it's significant growth. And Kenyans are very quick to criticize us and to say, oh, we are bad. But Kenya has made significant growth. And this the expansion of the democratic space means that there's more voices that are listened to.
Right.
And yesterday, a lot of the changes that are being made in the tax proposals, the ones that are being dropped, it's the youth that have driven it. Right. It's the young people who say, no, you are killing us, we are not breathing, we are dying, you know. And so, in terms of the youth, what can we do better? I think, so I will say we are making some very good progress in terms of youth participation in the civic space, youth participation in the workspace, youth participation around AI. One of the things that drove yesterday's demonstrations was AI. And those tech, it's the youth who are doing TikToks, they were on Instagram, they were on Facebook, they were on Twitter. I mean, technology is something that the young people like yourselves are using to increase to hold critical conversations around the governance, critical conversations around the fiscal space, critical conversations around our economy and how Kenya should be led. You guys are giving feedback to the MPs, and now you're even talking about recalling these MPs before even 3 years in their term, which is great because the young people are making the leadership of this country accountable. Things that perhaps my generation has failed. You understand?
Yes.
And for me, it's such an exciting time. I was telling my son, he graduated yesterday from high school. I was telling my son, I'm so proud of the young people. I'm so proud of you people. I'm so proud of what you're doing for this country. I'm so proud of what Kenya is going to become in the next 5 years because of the youth voices. Because you guys know what you want. You are not suffering from the problem of tribalism. You're not suffering from the problem of nepotism that our generation and our mother's generations were suffering. You understand?
Yes.
Because when we're making appointments, we're looking, are you Luya? Are you Luo? Are you Kikuyu? Our children, you people, you're all mixed race. You're half Luya, half Kikuyu, half Meru, so where will you align yourself to? So what can the government do? What can ELF do? It's to create spaces. Because again, when we're talking about conversations, it can't just be open. It needs to be controlled. It needs to be managed, because also the young people have a lot of energy and they have all these very interesting perspectives that need to be managed, and that's where people like us come in. People like ELF come in to say, okay, what's your feedback, and how do we then structure it in a way that's palpable to the people in leadership in government, because our president is not a youth.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
the executive is not a youth. And so how do you couch the feedback that the young people are pushing for in a way that will work for the Senate, in a way that will work for our MPs? Because these are the people who drive policy.
Right.
They're the people who vote on policy.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes.
And so that's what we can, and that's why ELF is such a fantastic organization, because it is creating different programs that are targeting different youths and getting feedback and coaching it in ways that the government, the public sector, the public service can actually use and leverage and run with. And at the end of the day, Kenya is in a much better place.
Right.
So that's the second aspect of, so I answered the question of where are we? I've answered the question of what can we do?
Right.
To ensure that the youth voices are heard. But most importantly now, I'll answer it as a HR person.
Right.
It's to say, how can we trust the youth, the young people within our spaces, within our workspaces? And how can we ensure that we tap and leverage the energies and the innovativeness and the creativity that the young people, rather than work against them? Because you find that in some environments, when the young people are coming up with ideas, managers who are our age feel threatened. And so we are frustrating them, you know. We are sidelining them in decision making. I think the youth, what the work environment, whether it's in the public sector, in the multilateral space, or in government or in corporates, is to enable the youth to thrive. Listen to them, throw them into projects, let them innovate, create spaces for them to innovate, give them opportunities to make mistakes and to learn, and don't victimize them. I hope I've answered your question.
Amazing. Let's come back to, because you've actually sort of segued into now your role at ELF and a lot of the leadership development work that you're doing. What can we look forward to in this space? Other organizations also serving and working for young people, other public sector experts like yourself who have a passion for young people, where can they plug in? And how do you attribute your commitment and your service to seeing improved public sector leadership? And where's the best way for us to plug in?
As ELF?
As ELF, as other public sector leaders who are passionate about seeing improved leadership development amongst the youth, and other organizations as well who are working and serving young people in Kenya and even in Africa.
Okay. I think that's the easiest question you've asked me of all your hard questions. Why do I say it's the easiest questions? Because ELF is already doing so much.
Right.
We are working with the public service. We are working with different foundations.
Yeah.
And that's the future. It's about partnerships.
Right.
You understand? And this is partnering around agenda items. What do we want? Where do we want to see Africa? Where do we want to see Kenya? And how do we find like-minded organizations so that we partner? I think ELF is already leading in that space. And so it's just to continue doing, you know, the way, that framework of what do we need to start, stop, continue.
Right.
So I told you, it's important to have frameworks for everything. It just makes your life very easy. So ELF is already doing a lot of partnerships, but of course there's always opportunities for improvement.
Yes.
I think there's a lot of work that we need to do around, as ELF, we need to do around civic education.
Right.
Around, and this is me using data from Twitter. So of course it's not scientifically peer reviewed, so I will say that. But a lot of the conversations on Twitter was that a lot of the tax, the punitive taxes that were being introduced were going to be for the middle and the higher income.
Right.
And yet that's not true. You understand? So how does ELF then plug into building capacity around civic education? I think that's an area we need to really do, so that by 2027, more Kenyans are aware about many things.
Right.
And more Kenyans are aware about how the political decision they make will impact their life, will impact their everything. There's education, it's health, it is everything. You have to participate in the political process. And so for me, I always say, people say I will not vote. I say, please don't talk to me. If you don't vote, then you have no longer standard to criticize the government.
Right.
You understand?
Yes.
Whichever government wins, as long as you participated in your civic expectation and you voted, then you have a local standard to criticize and to expect accountability.
Right.
So a lot of work needs to be done in that space.
Yes.
Now, around leadership development, it's a very interesting thing. ALF, again, is already doing some very, very good work.
Yeah.
But of course, there are inherent complexities around sustainability of some of these partnerships with governments. So how do we make it sustainable?
Right.
How do we make sure that the government and our other partners can see the sustainability of this public sector program that we have,
Right.
and bring in funding? Because again, you can have a very good product, you understand, or program, but you need funding to be able to be effective. And so how do we make sure that we are able to communicate our why and our purpose of this public sector emerging leaders program to different partners, so that they can leverage with us, they can fund us, so that we continue building capacity within the public sector. Third is also to leverage on what's existing. The Kenya School of Government is fantastic. The government has fantastic faculty. The government has fantastic programs. How do we, as organizations that are in the civic space, in the development space, then leverage with government so that we are not starting from scratch?
Right.
You get, we are not starting from scratch, but we are working with programs that are already in place. We are saying, how can, like, political astuteness. You asked a question of political astuteness, and how do the youth build political astuteness? They can't. There are things you can't learn from class.
Right.
You can only learn it when you are in it, through mentorship and coaching,
Right.
but also through immersion, going through and sometimes making mistakes. You understand? But if you have an idea of this political dynamic, this is how it looks like, and all that, then you can be able to say, how can I borrow from the 48 laws of power, from power, this and that. You understand?
Yeah.
So let's leverage on what's already existing, and let's align. And for me, at the end of the day, for an organization to be sustainable is for an organization to have integrity.
Right.
What's our purpose as ELF? And are we true to our purpose? Because sometimes you can face bumpy times,
Right.
and you may want to change or do what is expedient. You understand?
Yes.
And that can shift you away from your purpose.
Yes.
And the purpose for ELF has been very clear. And for me, one of the things that aligns, and I've been in this board for many, many, many years, is the purpose of ELF is at the heart of my who I am, wanting what's best for Kenya, wanting the youth for Kenya to take up leadership roles and to take Kenya to the next level.
Right.
That answers your question on succession.
It does. A message to young people, whether they're in public service or not. You've mentioned that young people need to be even more engaged in civic spaces and participate more. But what's your message for us?
Wow. I mean, the young people of Kenya are the future of this country. You have demonstrated it. You have demonstrated it. We are cheering you. We are here to support you. But you really are the future. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Loice. Soon to be Dr. Loice. We can't wait. We'll be celebrating with you. And thank you so much to the team that has put together this session today, to Click Pictures, to the ELF team that's been doing all the background work. Thank you. So to our audience, tune in again. We'll have so much more of our Excellence in Public Service series. See you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you.